Hey there, GSN fans, skate fans all across the world. Mitch Whitmore and I, Victor Haltar, we are back with a different episode than usual. We are not in the same place. We're on the off season, so we're chilling. I am back with my family-in-law in Russia, and Mitch is still in the US. However, there's been so many cool things going on: short track world championships, long track sprint world championships, and all-around world championships. And there is an inline season coming up very soon. So we just felt like you guys deserved an update and an episode. Where are we going to start, Mish?
We're going to start with short track because it just happened and it was super exciting. I think we can start with, just the production quality of the competition to me was so much better. Like something I feel like we've been asking for a long time. And, short track is probably the way of the future because it's entertaining. There's a lot of stuff that happens. There's still some things that need to change. Like in my opinion, there's still too long between some races. And they still do too many resurfaces for the event quality. For the skaters, obviously, it makes more sense. But I think there's going to be a way that we find a way to like zam the ice a lot quicker, or maybe something in the interim instead of just pouring the water down. But there's got to be something to make that faster. But if they do, I really think short track can be a spectacle that is constantly entertaining. I really loved the commentators and thought that they did a great job. Tyler Duro was awesome. And the in-between stuff was sweet. So really cool to see. You want to talk about Ariana Fontana?
Yeah, she's probably the first thing we should mention. She didn't win anything, but wow, coming back after basically no international racing since the Olympic Games. And for a moment, I think both of us, including a lot of spectators thought she could become a world champion right there. She made it to the 1,000-meter final. She made it to the 1,500-meter final and the 500-meter final, I think.
500. I think she was fourth in that. Is that right? But consistent just every time, and not racing for 2 full seasons. First race, not even World Cups. First race is World Championships, and she's making finals. It does look like she's a step behind the top girls. I'd say Kristen does look the fastest. And so she's maybe a step behind speed-wise, but she knows how to race so well that she was able to pull off some incredible stuff. And speaking of Kristen, most dominant of the weekend for sure. She, was kind of pushed out by Hannah in the first race, the 1,500. Missed out on gold there. But then maybe it comes back around a little bit in the 1,000 and wins gold. Great in the 500 and then the relays. Oh my God, just she's a powerhouse right now, and really cool to see just her progression over the past 5-6 years has been just steadily getting better. Really cool.
Yeah, especially it showed her consistency that she was good across all the distances, and especially that 1,000-meter that she ultimately won, where they skated an entire 1,000-meter twice after a pretty wild crash that took down the majority of the skaters. After which Hanne Desmet got disqualified or had a penalty, and Susanne Schulting was not able to finish the second race due to that injury that she got out of the crash and wasn't able to race the rest of the day. So that was just, that race in itself was wild. It was also crazy that we had different winners in basically everything, and some new people winning. The first individual gold for Santos, the first for Kim Bhutan, despite winning a lot of races and breaking world records. So it was just many surprises and a lot of action for sure.
Yeah, we also wanted to talk about the Chinese men. They won multiple distances, both relays. So they were on their A game for sure. I think interesting that the one Lin, formerly of Lim, from Korea. So he's already, I believe, a gold medalist for the Koreans and switched nationalities to the Chinese, just like the Liu brothers. But I didn't really notice that both brothers, but there was one, and he did make it to a final, but didn't seem quite as good as he was previously, or the rest of the world just stepped up. But I just was used to, a couple years ago, the two Liu brothers being super dominant throughout the whole Worlds and season.
Yeah, good point. I wonder if they I mean, they also missed out on the year of racing. Now we just talked about how easy it was for Ariane Fontana to find it. If that hurt them in a bit, like switching to a new country, even though they brought their own coach, it is still 1 year with no serious racing.
Yeah.
And maybe it just takes more to get back in it.
Yeah, you got to think that short track you need to race probably more than anything, right? Like you could be out of shape. You could get away with it maybe a little bit better if you were out of shape but race really well versus super fit but no idea what you're doing out there.
Yeah.
At least that's my take on it. But yeah, shifting over to the long track side, we had world all-arounds and world sprints. All-arounds which you took in yourself. What do you think about the competition?
Pretty incredible. I mean, it goes without saying that there was two big names, Miho Takagi and Jordan Stoltz, two people that could have won whatever they wanted, more or less. Um, Jordan was incredible. I also want to mention, like, I think the level was super high. It was basically track record in every distance skated there, which in itself says a lot. And those track records are not easy to beat. It's Insel is one of the most
Yeah.
skated places. So
Yeah,
the fact, and they
yeah.
had world champs just what 4 or 5 years back, and yet all the records were broken. So that was incredible. I do think the one thing we're going to talk about here, I know we do this basically every single episode, but he just keeps impressing. Jordan Stoltz turns out to not just be the best sprinter in the world, but also one of the best, not all rounders, but one of the best long distance skaters. Even that's incredible. What do you think about his performances? Did you expect him to be that far ahead?
No, I didn't expect him to win by that much. I did think that he would win, but I really thought it was going to come down to like 0.3 of a Samolog point. But his 500 was a little bit better than I had anticipated it being. I just thought if he was prepping a little bit extra for the 5K on that weekend, because I thought the 5K was really going to be the make or break. We knew he was going to get a decent margin from the 5 and probably the 15. And then the 5K, 10K is what he needed to have, enough of that engine for at that moment. Instead of a full taper, when you taper for a true sprinter, you're really taking the all of it off so they can go fast. But it seems like he's so good it didn't even matter to break the track record in the 500 and would have dominated world sprints, we know. But then to do a 500 that fast, 15 was maybe his worst race of the weekend, or it was Patrick's best race of the weekend. But then that 5K was insane, and I actually had a conversation with Shawnee Davis a couple weeks ago that we both think that he could probably win some medals in 5Ks if he wanted to. Shawnee thought maybe at the Olympics it would actually be a little bit harder for him because when the 5K guys are fully tapered and ready just for 5Ks, they'd be a little bit tougher. But I still think if he wants to go for it, he could do it.
Yeah. I mean, we got to mention that. So, hon kostet pošli moja telefon, ja falčom. Da?
This is Vic speaking sort of Russian to small children and telling them to leave the room.
Super. And it worked. I don't know what.
It's good stuff. And we were talking about Jordan, and I think also Miho. I don't think that she would have won the all-arounds if she was to just do that. Based on her 500, she would have had a nice lead, and I think her 15 would have been probably first. But I don't think it would have been enough of a margin for the 3K, 5K over Joy and the rest of that field. They were really strong throughout, and I don't think she would have won.
I mean, the fact that Joy took a decent amount of time off both the 1500 and the 5K track record.
Yeah.
That says a lot. Again, it's Insel, and if you break two track records, you got to have a really bad 500 meter to not, not
really bad.
They had a 39.1. It was still that was a decent time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also Miho, at that point, Miho was also, you could tell she was tired after the whole sprint competition. Maybe she was a little optimistic. Still a great move. I also think we should give a little bit of credit to Patrick Roast for really giving everything. Like, you could tell he had his coach telling him, how far am I ahead of Jordan? How far do I need to get ahead of Jordan? And he just went for it. With 12 laps to go, he started digging into 29s, knowing
Yeah.
like, that's a really fast 5K. And just cool seeing him do it and fight for it. He had nothing to lose. He was so far ahead of third place. So that made for like, some really cool entertainment there.
For sure the most exciting world all-arounds in a long time. To come from that massive polarization, or at least what we thought was going to be, those huge differences. And I like to see that, he knew he was super far behind, and he needed to lap him plus some. So it was cool to see that he went for it. But then Jordan was really close at the end in the grand scheme of things in the 5K. 5K was a little bit bigger gap, but the 10K was not far.
No.
So once he can settle into aerobic pace, he's in there. Some other really impressive stuff from the weekend was Ning. I really didn't expect. I mean, Johan, hats off, incredible season. But I don't think anybody would have expected Zhang Yang Ning to be that fast in the 500s. I think the thousands, of course, we thought he was going to win those, but man, that's something.
Impressive. Yeah, and we always look like he's a 1,000, 1,500 meter guy.
Right.
We've never really. I don't think he even had he seemed very surprised by that. Was it 34.5?
I think 4.4. 4.4 was his second one. The first one made sense, okay, 4.8, because that's about what Keld usually does, or like what Thomas could maybe do. Maybe he was a little bit on the 5.0 side, but fast, but for 1,000 meter, 1,500 meter guy. But what he did was beating most of the 500 guys in the 500 as well. So maybe we shouldn't label him as something, but he did get second in the. All right, I guess he got fourth at Worlds in the 1,500, but it was close, really close to everybody. So second in the 1,000.
Another performance that I think stood out. It's not the most important thing given that it's an all-round championships, but Davide Giotto's 10K. One thing that I found really interesting about this, it is the first time that anyone has broken any of the track records set by Nils van der Poel in his 2 comeback years that he showed to be the best in history of long-distance skating.
Yeah.
Davide Giotto broke that track record he set in Insel, so I'm very excited to see how much better Giotto can be here. We know he got the home Olympics in less than 2 years now. Where can he take this?
Yeah, and, I guess a couple angles from there. One, that 5K was incredible, too. I don't know how many times he has beaten Patrick, but that was a nice one to fend him off at the end of the race there. And I think it just shows, too, beating Nils' records. This is just how the world works. Like, you see somebody do a certain time, it's possible, and then the world goes after it. We know the famous story of when somebody broke 4 minutes in the mile. It was a plethora of people after that. In the next 2 months, dozens of people broke 4 minutes. And so I think it's the same situation here. So it's really hard to compare times through generations. Even if it's 8-10 years later, it's not the same. It's not the same situation. So crazy to see that, next man up. Giotto is obviously taking the reins there. 10K working his way down to the 5K, kind of like Nils, and we've seen him perform in those team pursuits too. So, I think the whole next flock of guys, hopefully you included, bridge that gap and are right on Nils times and beyond.
It seems like we're all getting closer and closer. Yeah, like you said, it was the same with the 500 meter for the men's. It was like a crazy thing when Paolo went under 34.0. And now it's like, well, if you want to be at the podium in Salt Lake City, you got to go 33s.
There's 8 people under 34 now, something like that. And for a little while there was Witherspoon at 34.03, and nobody really was within a couple tenths, and then a couple years, and then wham. So funny to see how times just start creeping down.
We also saw here in Insel, that also marked the last race for quite a lot of people, especially the Norwegians. We had the two FANA IL club skating guys, Olympic champions Harvard Lorenzen and Sverre Lunde Petersen, they bid their farewell to the sport, and they did pretty good, both of them. Lorenzen skated the fourth place in one of the 1,000 meters, and Sverre made it into the 10K, ranked third in the overall, and ultimately got beaten by Helgir Engebroden. And I think that was kind of a cool full circle that also this year we saw the sprinter Björn Magnussen equal Harvard Lorenzen's national record in the 500 meters. So maybe it's just the right time for them to retire and move on. And same goes for Martina Ripsrud, also from Norway. She skated her last race, and it was race here in Insulin, and it seemed pretty emotional as well for all of them. Even Howard Lorenzen shed a tear before he started his last race. So
I saw that.
Beautiful ending.
I thought that was awesome, and I raced Lorenzen for a little bit. Obviously, Sverre has been around for a while as well, and incredible careers for both of them. I think it was, just a nice handoff to the next generation, like you said, and it was like almost looked like by design that Magnussen all of a sudden had a great last 2 months of the season, because he hasn't been up there in a long time. We're never really like surpassing the Lorenzen level, but he really made a nice jump this last 2 months. And then, like you said, Ingebroden and the rest of the young Norwegian squad is really skating well. So it's like it's a perfect time to hand off to that younger generation for those two guys, and then two other retirees that we saw, but not from this week, was the Schouten and Thomas Kroll. We wanted to mention as well. So 4 Olympic gold medalists all hanging it up halfway through the quad. Yeah. What do you think? Why do you think they're giving it up halfway through?
I mean, first of all, I think that's crazy, because I remember thinking right after the Olympics, like, wow, basically nobody retires these last Olympics.
Right.
And I would also, I think, naturally think this is going to be the worst time to retire financially, in terms of achievements, goals. Why would you retire right in between? But I do also think that for these people, I know Sverre already put this like in the calendar right after the Olympics. I want to do, this is my next big goal. And I mean, from what he said, is also that is still 2 more years. Like, that's more than 700 days of training. It takes a lot of motivation. And we got to keep in mind that, at least for Sverre and Harvard here, they got 2 kids. Harvard's got another kid coming up next summer. And in Norway, these guys do not train on that outdoor rink they have at home. They're in training camp like more than half the year. And like maybe they just reached the time where it's a lot of giving and not so much getting. It's just, and I mean, to be fair, they achieved everything you can achieve. World champions, Olympic champions.
Right.
It's not an embarrassing career to end. So
yeah,
that could be it.
And I wondered if the Norwegian performance model maybe is based on a 2-year cycle, and so maybe it's like if you do something, then 2 years later it ends, and you would have had to prove it in that 2-year frame, something like that. So maybe, obviously they both did well. They won medals at the last Olympics, so maybe that money lasted for 2 years. Who knows? Or maybe it's just time to spend more time at home with the family. Like you said, that 700 days of training sounds like a lot. 2 years doesn't sound so bad, but when you think about just how many hours that is, and in a lot of those countries they do training camps away from home, and so I think that's tons of time on the road away from your growing children.
Yeah. Now, some people now leaving the sport. We also have a few exchanges, especially when we look at the Dutch teams for next year. It seems like Jumbo-Visma is letting go of a lot of people, and on the other hand, we got the Regboard team signing a lot of new contracts here.
Big names.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like we've seen this little by little over the last 4 years in the Netherlands, that the Regboard team came out of nowhere with a massive budget, and they're just, they started with Rain Boost, then Kill Noise joined, and now it's, Patrick Rose, Heinoda Spear, Femke. It seems like they're just getting all the big names, or they're just doing a really good job developing the big names. Because this year, I do think that we saw, and even in terms of what we've seen previously of results, that Jumbo definitely had at least an even, pool of talent, and maybe didn't make as much use of it.
Yeah, and it's hard to say that they didn't do well. You know, they still had tons of people win medals at World Cups, and Yuta did medal in the 1,000 at Worlds. Antoinette was, for her standards, I think subpar from where she is capable of, but still is a really good skater. But I think it was most obvious on like the sprint side, especially the men's sprint side, where all the guys that were the top competitors, like Marine and Kai, Yoop now, like they all didn't make teams. Obviously, Thomas didn't make teams and retired. Who knows if it's part of the same thing or just lost the love of it. But they for sure got smoked by Regeborg all season. So, it looks like a big shift there. The Visma Jumbo team still does have a massive team. They've got like the junior group. They also have a good backing from the cycling team. So you would think that they're not going anywhere. But Antoinette did just switch over to Regeborg. Jorrit Bergsma, I heard, went back to Zanlander. So yeah, hearing some big shifts happening over there. Dai left. Not sure if he's being signed by Regeborg or just doing something different, but yeah, a lot of moves.
And this Regeborg thing is definitely not going to end soon, because they also recently announced that the Regeborg Foundation has extended that contract. Like, they're going to have this Regeborg skating team up until the not 2026, but 2030 Olympics. So it's a very long-term investment they got in the sport and that team, of course.
Yeah, that's great. It's great for the sport to have these pro teams and big companies. The more money in the sport, no matter where it's going, I think is a good thing. Yeah. Speaking of the money, side note, Yuta is all over the U.S. social media pages these days. She's been on Jake Paul's own podcast for like his betting website too. So yeah, funny that she's just been plastered all over the place. I think that's great for the sport as well. The more a speed skater is just seen in the world, the more people are like, oh, what is speed skating? And maybe they'll figure it out.
Yeah, we need these big profiles, these big names, faces to basically be ambassadors of the sport. I honestly sold my car a few weeks back, and I told the guy that bought it that I was in the US for speed skating, and he was like, oh, like the thing that I think he said the thing that Jake Paul's girlfriend does. I was like, yeah. And then after that, I had to explain the whole thing. But he knew, without knowing the sport of skating, he knew like, oh, Jake Paul's and like.
Oh yeah.
So it goes to show that we are expanding in different ways, but positive ways.
We'll take it. Any growth is growth. Yeah, and then we also want to talk about the next season calendar. That looks pretty exciting. What are your thoughts?
Super exciting. I think it was super cool that the ISU announced their World Cup calendars all until, I think, 2028 last year. But this has also been the least certain of those years. At first, we saw a World Cup that was supposed to be held in Milwaukee. Then there was a lot of rumors that it's not going to be held there. And now we're back to it's probably maybe going to be there. And also, same goes for we were supposed to have a test event, just like every year before the Olympics, or every season before the Olympics, a test event at that Olympic venue. But that one has been moved. At first, we thought it was going to be moved to Tomaszów Mazowiecki, which I think most of the skaters, including the coach Johan de Witt, would not be stoked about. Yeah. But it is going to be in a brand new rink in Zakopane, a high-altitude rink. I think you're in agreement with me when I say that could be the most interesting part of that season, no?
Yes, I think Zakopane is awesome. I had my last Junior Worlds there, and it's a cool town. If you don't know, it's like a mini Park City in Poland is how I felt. And I thought it was really cool. The rink is right next to the ski jump hill. You're nestled in the mountains. And it was outdoors then. So now that they put a roof on it with that little bit of altitude, it could be really fast. So that could be a fun competition. And speaking of Milwaukee, I hope they do. I really hope they have a World Cup there. I think, they sold out our Olympic trials in 2018 every day, and a couple of the days didn't even have spots on the line. But you set up a beer tent out in Milwaukee, and people are gonna come flock to it. So I think it'd be awesome to have.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
agree on that. I think also most of the skaters would agree that we don't need those super fast, perfect venues. It's much more fun skating in places where people love the sport and where
Right.
it's just exciting to be, where we can make the event cool, even though the ice might not be the fastest or it's not the nicest seat for the spectators. Just make it a wild event, more outdoor
Yeah.
ice and more new venues just like these. So I really hope we're going to stick to Milwaukee and then looking forward to Zakopane.
I'm
See how fast that's going to
I'm
be.
with you, and it goes back to the Rotterdam for short track. It's a makeshift rink, so it's not like the ice is the most impactful thing. Obviously, Tialf does amazing. They sell out for their Dutch trials,
Yeah.
but yeah, a place like Milwaukee or somewhere that like sells out the crowd. That's what we need to do more of, even if it isn't, like you said, a great venue for the racing. Who cares? As long as at the end of the day, this is entertainment, right? Like our sport is for people to see. And if we go to Harbin or Changchun where nobody shows up, it's not so great, or Tomashev that's cold and still nobody shows up. Like, I think, yeah, we need places that embrace it. And I think the sport can grow from those hubs outwards.
Yeah, reach new communities, expand, definitely.
Yeah,
And
it's a,
well, before we get to that next ice skating season, we got a whole inline season coming up. That's going to kick off in I think less than a week and a half. We're going to have the first European Cups through Germany, the Netherlands, and then we're also going to have the first marathons there, starting with the Berlin Half Marathon. That's going to be super excited to see who is good this season. I mean, there's a bit like the ice season. It's just there's half a year with no inline skating, so those first few races are just going to be very revealing to see what we will see, who we're going to see at the European Championships, the World
yeah.
Championships, and yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to a brand new marathon league in the United States of America that I think we both agree that the U.S. has been a little behind, especially in terms of organizing bigger events, bigger races, and gathering more of an international crowd at these events. But there is this skating series, USA Skating Series, which is going to be 4 different events starting June and ending mid-September with the North Shore Marathon. I think that's going to be really exciting, and I hope to go to at least a few of those races.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. It seems like the Orlando race and the North Shore race are basically the only like international ones
Yeah.
that draw people into the U.S. So I think this will be great. Hopefully, something that yeah gets more buzz going around the inlines, and I'm really excited to check out the European Cups and all these other races. Hopefully, that big marathon series goes through. I think that would have been, or that will be really cool if it does. So yeah, hopefully we can be doing more of these videos. We've got some correspondents in the field that'll help us out with what's happening in the inline world, and hopefully we can deliver that news.
Yep. Until then, we also want to recommend you to hop on YouTube and check out the new documentaries on the bond skating YouTube channel called Chasing the Sun. It is a super cool project. It's made by Gwenda Lepivier, multiple times world champion, now retired inline skater. But long story short, it is 2 inliners from that team going to L'Île de Réunion, a French island, and really just trying to see how fast they can go on a track. It sounds a little weird, not super exciting when you explain it, but go watch that video. It's gotten just in 2 weeks almost 400,000 views on YouTube, and it's so professionally made. I would say it's some of the coolest long edited content there is out there. So check that out in the meantime.
Cool. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully some good stuff coming out of the inline world in the next few months.
Yep. Also, even though we're not back on the ice, we have already pre-created a little bit of content for you guys, so you can stay entertained in the off season. What have we got for them, Mitch?
We still need to release our top 10 best long track women of all time. And then we have our top 10 one hit wonders to put out. And those will be in the next week or so, maybe spaced out just a little. And then as soon as Vic's back in America, we'll get going on all sorts of different learning videos and more fun content from there.
Yeah, we have a long list of things we want to produce and post, but if you got any ideas or any suggestions, we'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. And also, we got our hands on the brand new Viking blades that we've been teasing a little for here on the channel. They're called Ruby, and we're definitely gonna show you more of those. Show you got some information from Viking themselves why they are gonna be popular and why they made those blades. So we're gonna show you like a little unboxing video and kind of a first hands on the new Ruby blades.
Yeah, very excited to see what those are like. Too bad the ice is out here now, but yeah, it'll be back in hopefully in July, and we can get testing. Maybe on the short tracks too. I'm excited to check those ones out.
The trivia question for next week, however, is now we're just talking about a brand new high altitude rink. That's going to be the 4th covered under a roof high altitude rink in the world. The first is Calgary, then Salt Lake City. And then before this most recent one, Zakopane, there was another one built. It has not had any international races yet, but it is fully covered, and there's been some pretty fast times there. If you know what rink and what country and city that is, let us know in the comment section below.
Good question. I like that one.
That's a good question.
We have seen some good times from that rink in the past.
If the rink is real and the times, you're not certain.
if it's not an AI rink, then it's pretty fast. Well, thanks so much for watching the episode. Again, like Vic said, if you have any thoughts or video suggestions for us, please comment in the section below. Otherwise, yeah, look forward to our next vids.
Happy off season until then, guys.